Thanks so much to all of you for your opening statements. We'll now proceed to 5-minute rounds of questions alternating between Republicans and Democrats, and I'll begin that now. Ms. Puglisi, I'd like to start with you, if that's all right. Last week, the New York Times published an article in which you were prominently featured. You were featured discussing how the CCP has used legal threats to intimidate American researchers, including yourself, in an effort to suppress research that exposes its influence operations. Now, if the CCP is brazen enough to do this, to try to pressure and influence American researchers, what does that say about the ability that they have to exert pressure on Chinese nationals from the People's Republic of China, working within U.S. national labs, especially keeping in mind that those individuals, if they are residents of if they're residents of China, what does that say about their ability to have pressure brought to bear on them, given that they're subject to Chinese laws that can compel them to cooperate with PRC intelligence gathering operations?
Thank you for that question, Senator. I think, it really highlights a disturbing trend, right? I believe that, we've talked a lot about the hope was that as we moved forward with engagement and collaborations that China would change and its laws and rules and norms would become more like our own. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And so I think, as I made in my opening statement in my written testimony, the importance of talking about this behavior, and that if we ignore the pressures that these scientists and students are under, we really do them a disservice, and we do our own society a disservice, because then we become more like them. But it really, I think, highlights as well that it's really hard, for us to understand that kind of pressure, and that we need to put in place those guidelines to both foster, those collaborations, but also to protect that technology and to ensure that that doesn't happen.
But needless to say, the pressure that can be brought to bear on Chinese nationals at these labs is immense.
Yes, it is. And I think it highlights, as we've seen over the past year, the articles and stories about kind of extra-legal behavior, not only for scientists, but on different campuses of, China's actions.
Now, Mr. DeBar, your testimony states that the Department of Energy under the Biden administration restarted engagement with China to share U.S. energy technologies developed in our national labs. In at least one instance in 2023, a Lawrence Berkeley National Lab scientist went to China, where he advised the dean of the School of Energy, Power, and Engineering at Zhengzhou University, who also happens to be an affiliate of the foreign influence arm of the Chinese Communist Party, on how best to construct an engineering lab for the school. Do you think U.S. national labs should be engaged in these efforts with our greatest global adversary, and should American taxpayers be funding such support that ends up benefiting our adversaries in this way?
No, Senator Lee, I don't think we should. They've been very clear that they want to dominate the tech space. And as I listed in my testimony, there's a long series of technologies, including in energy, that were invented at the DOE National Labs, invented by American companies, that was stolen. And so there's a long track record on this topic of much of which they're selling the world was invented in America. And so I think we need to be much more cognizant of this topic, and I think more controls are needed on this, as I mentioned in my testimony.
So that's an expensive proposition, losing valuable research for which we've paid dearly, and having it go to our greatest geopolitical adversary isn't an ideal outcome. Quite far from it. This can have devastating consequences. Now, Section 436 of the FY 2025 Intelligence Authorization Act, which barred foreign nationals from adversarial nations from accessing our national laboratories, received unanimous approval from the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence by a vote of 17-0. But it was blocked from the National Defense Authorization Act due to opposition from the former chairman of this committee. The provision included a waiver process allowing exceptions when the Secretary of Energy determined the national or economic security benefits outweighed the risks. Now, given these strong bipartisan concerns, would you support enacting similar safeguards to protect our most sensitive research while allowing for limited high-level exceptions?
I would, Senator. Obviously, it's a bipartisan topic. The way the current DOE order is written, that was done when I was undersecretary, basically required sign-offs to have any Chinese interaction. I believe a lot of it was delegated down to lower levels, which basically opened the doors, as far as I could tell from my conversations with DOE. I think we need to potentially do exactly as the Intelligence Committee looked at, which is flip it. Instead of authorizing and sign-offs, is to do it the other way, which is the base case is to ban that from adversary nations and to give waivers as required. I think that's a better way, given decades of Chinese infiltration and attempts.
Leaving the defaulted on is dangerous, in other words. I see my time's expired. We'll turn the time over to Senator Heinrich.